The war in Ukraine has entered a critical phase as both Ukrainian and Russian forces continue to clash over strategic positions in the eastern and southern parts of the country. Over the past weeks, Ukrainian forces have made significant advances, putting immense pressure on Russian defensive lines, particularly in the contested Kursk region. At the same time, Russia has intensified its military operations with large-scale counterattacks aimed at halting Ukraine's momentum. As the conflict escalates, the stakes for both sides and the international community are higher than ever. Yesterday, in a dramatic turn of events, Ukrainian forces launched a highly coordinated offensive deep inside Russian-controlled territory. Reports indicate that a Ukrainian Special Forces unit penetrated the Russian region of Kursk and carried out a bold attack on a major Russian ammunition depot, which had been a crucial supply point for Russian forces in the region. This strike is part of a broader Ukrainian strategy to weaken Russia's supply lines and disrupt its ability to sustain military operations. According to intelligence shared by Petro Andriushchenko, an advisor to the mayor of Mariupol, the Ukrainian Air Force also played a pivotal role in this operation. Using precision-guided missiles, Ukrainian planes targeted and destroyed not only the ammunition depot, but also an entire Russian air defense system located nearby. The depot, reportedly located in the small town of Chbak, housed significant stores of ammunition and air defense missiles that were vital for Russia's operations in southern Ukraine. Following the strike, the depot erupted into massive explosions that continued for several hours, with local reports stating that the fire was visible from miles away. Satellite images and photos circulating on social media have confirmed the scale of the destruction. The images released by independent observers and satellite monitoring companies show large plumes of smoke rising from the Chbak depot and surrounding areas. In response to the strike, Russian authorities quickly evacuated residents from nearby villages, including Portovsk, fearing further explosions or potential retaliation by Ukrainian forces. This bold attack came just days after Ukrainian forces launched another offensive, this time targeting a Russian military command center in Kharkiv. Ukrainian warplanes equipped with GBU-39 bombs, high-precision, American-made guided bombs, struck the Russian command center with pinpoint accuracy. The GBU-39 bombs are especially effective against fortified targets, as they are designed to penetrate reinforced structures before detonating. This strike, which was part of Ukraine's broader strategy to dismantle Russia's command and control infrastructure, has significantly weakened Russian coordination efforts in the region. As a result of these two major operations, Ukrainian forces have managed to recapture key territories that had been under Russian control for months. According to analysts, Ukraine has regained control of over 500 square miles of land in the Kursk region, including more than 100 villages that had been occupied by Russian forces since early in the war. This represents one of the most significant territorial gains for Ukraine since the early days of the conflict. However, the success of these operations has not come without cost. Ukrainian forces continue to face stiff resistance from Russian troops, who have been reinforcing their positions along key front lines in both the east and south. Russia has been deploying more experienced troops, including elements of its elite airborne and mechanized units, to bolster its defenses in critical areas like Kursk, Luhansk, and Zaporizhzhia. These reinforcements are part of a broader Russian effort to mount a counteroffensive aimed at recapturing lost ground. Russian President Vladimir Putin, reportedly frustrated with the slow progress of his military, has set a deadline for his commanders to reclaim full control of the Kursk region by October 1st. This has placed immense pressure on Russian forces to deliver results, leading to increasingly aggressive tactics on the battlefield. Over the past few days, Russian artillery and airstrikes have intensified across multiple fronts, with reports of heavy bombardment in the areas surrounding Kharkiv, Donetsk, and Mykolaiv. In several instances, Russian forces have resorted to indiscriminate shelling of civilian areas, leading to a growing number of casualties among Ukrainian civilians. In response, Ukrainian forces have adapted their strategy to counter Russia's numerical superiority in terms of artillery and air power. Ukrainian military leaders have increasingly relied on a combination of mobility, flexibility, and guerrilla tactics to avoid being pinned down by Russian firepower. Rather than engaging in protracted static defenses, Ukrainian units have been employing hit-and-run tactics, retreating from heavily bombarded areas only to regroup and launch surprise attacks on Russian forces from unexpected directions. This approach has allowed Ukraine to minimize its losses while maintaining the initiative on the battlefield. As the fighting intensifies, international support for Ukraine has become even more critical. Over the past few months, Western nations have increased their military aid to Ukraine, providing Kiev with advanced weaponry and financial assistance to sustain its war effort. The United States, Ukraine's largest military backer, has recently announced a new aid package worth $125 million, which includes critical munitions for air defense systems, HIMARS rockets, and equipment to counter Russian drone strikes. This aid is part of a broader U.S. commitment to ensuring Ukraine has the resources needed to continue its fight against Russia. Other Western nations have also stepped up their support. Denmark, for example, has pledged an additional $115 million in military aid to Ukraine, including equipment for F-16 fighter jets, artillery systems, and other critical supplies. This aid, combined with contributions from other NATO allies, has significantly enhanced Ukraine's military capabilities, allowing it to sustain its offensive operations against Russian forces. However, despite these gains, the war in Ukraine is far from over. Russia remains determined to hold on to the territories it has occupied, and the Kremlin shows no signs of backing down. Recent reports suggest that Russia is planning to launch a new wave of conscription, with the goal of drafting hundreds of thousands of additional troops to bolster its forces in Ukraine. This move, which comes amid growing domestic discontent over the war, highlights the immense challenges facing both sides as they prepare for the next phase of the conflict. For Ukraine, the coming weeks will be crucial. With winter approaching, Ukrainian forces must continue to press their advantage while the weather remains favorable for military operations. At the same time, they must be prepared for the possibility of a major Russian counteroffensive. As the conflict grinds on, the toll on both sides will undoubtedly grow, with the potential for even more devastating consequences for the region and the world. As the world watches closely, the question remains, how long can Ukraine sustain its current momentum, and will Russia be able to mount a successful counterattack before it's too late? The outcome of this phase of the war could have far-reaching implications not only for the future of Ukraine, but also for the broader geopolitical landscape in Europe and beyond.